They sued me for fishing on the shore behind my own cabin, $200, and a threat to take me to small claims if I didn't cough it up and… yeah, that happened. I'm Brandon. I fix computers for a living now, but I used to build fences. And the morning they served me that fine, I was on the dock with my dad's old rod coffee. Cooling mist lifting off the lake like steam off a skillet when heels clicked down the boardwalk and turned peace into paperwork. "Good morning, Brandon," said our HOA president, Catherine Perez. Phone up like a badge documenting unauthorized use of the watershed under the new environmental ordinance, and I wanted to laugh. Then I saw the red recording dot and felt something settle in my chest that wasn't laughter at all. See, this lake isn't just water to me. It's where my folks taught me patience, where my grandfather's tackle box still smells like oil and cedar, where I go to feel like myself for an hour before emails and bills start barking. So when Catherine started talking permits and compliance, I asked the only reasonable thing: show me where to apply. And she smiled the kind of smile people use when they enjoy saying no. I put the base back in the water, reeled in slow, and told her I'd be happy to read anything with an actual signature on it. Because if she wanted to play with lines on paper, well, I know a thing or two about lines. That night, my wife, Kelly, stood at the stove while I spread our deed, and the old survey across the table tracing bearings with a finger like I was reading Braille, and she said what we were both thinking. We moved here for quiet, and I said what I needed to say out loud. Quiet isn't surrender. 2 days later, the certified letter showed up with the big number and the bigger tone, 30 days or else. And on the back of that envelope, I sketched a fence string line out of habit measure: twice build, once stand your ground. Only once, if you do it right. I ordered cameras and flagged the corners, and those cameras caught the first gut punch: my neighbor Derek Wilson slipping to Catherine's place after dark, checking my stakes like a scout coming back again and again. And betrayal hits dull at first, then hot later. You know what I mean. I found my ally at the hardware store in a retired county surveyor named Tom Garcia. Hands like rope, voice like gravel, worn smooth, who looked at my papers and said, "If we draw it right, it'll stand in court." And that was the first full breath I took all week. Catherine didn't wait for breath. She filed suit fast. 3 $200+ fees. Court date set, no mediation, which told me speed was part of her strategy and sloppiness would be her weakness. So Tom set up his GPS rover. We walked the pin-scraped mulch off old markers someone had conveniently buried, and the numbers told a story my eyes had never been allowed to see. My line pushed 15 feet closer to the lake than the HOA had been claiming. The so-called community access path ran right across my dirt, and Tom tapped the screen and said he'd swear to it. So I set 3 posts dead on the line, concrete level, string tight, and a new sound rolled through Cedar Ridge: questions. Patterson asked where her lake maintenance fees had gone, because she hadn't seen a repaired plank in years. The Hendersons wondered why their kids couldn't play where the map said they could. And Catherine showed up with her phone and her clipboard and a voice like a closing argument. "Remove the fence or you'll face contempt." And I said, "Of what?" Accuracy. Then she leaned in with what she thought was mercy. "Drop the fence and I'll drop the fine." And I told her, "Make me a better offer." Because by then, it wasn't just about my fishing. It was about everyone she'd pushed around with a title and a tone. She tried a new angle with the county filing an emergency environmental complaint, and the inspector Sarah came out with steady eyes and a trunk full of gear. Tested the water, measured the setback. Took soil cores where Catherine swore I'd caused erosion. Then closed her notebook and said, no violations, and recommended a mark for malicious reporting, and I'm not gonna lie, I sat on the steps with Kelly after that and let the relief wash over me like wind over the water. My day job is finding bad numbers that hide in plain sight. So I opened the HOA ledger the same way I open a breached server, slow, careful, no adjectives, and found a shoreline fund that had taken in thousands for testing and repairs. Nobody could point to line items that drifted 6,000 this way, and that a vendor trail that curled back toward Catherine's tidy little LLC, and I, 3-hole, punched every receipt, tabbed every mismatch. Called an emergency meeting, then walked the room through dates and dollars, while hands started to shake and jaws started to set. Catherine, I've paid $50 a month for years. Where are the receipts? Ms. Patterson asked, and the silence that followed had weight. Then Catherine cracked. Called us ungrateful. Said she built this community, stormed out, and the board accepted her resignation before the door latch cooled. You'd think that would be the end. It wasn't. Power doesn't like leaving people who define themselves by it. It scratches it, flails, it burns. And that same night, somebody cut a section of my fence with bolt cutters. My motion lights went to daylight. The cameras sang. And Officer Harris found Catherine in my yard with the cutters in her hands, and a look I'd seen on cornered animals. She was cited on the spot, a protection order followed. And 2 mornings later, I found gasoline-soaked rags tucked by the hedge and felt a cold that doesn't come from air. I upgraded the fence to fire-resistant composite added sensors that could catch a moth with an attitude. Floodlights bright enough to make raccoons rethink their life choices. Called the fire department, documented everything, breathed on purpose, and the attempted arson came at 3 a.m. on a Friday. Like bad timing. Always does. She stepped into the yard with gas cans and something homemade in a bag. The lights exploded on. She froze. I called police and fire rolled in 4 minutes flat. And if you've ever watched someone choose a crime in high definition, then get caught by their own momentum, you know the cocktail of anger and relief that leaves you shaking and grateful at the same time. Court day felt almost quiet after that. Tom's survey with GPS coordinates my permits with county stamps. Sarah's report with the line highlighted that said no, violations. I handed the judge the binder and answered a handful of questions. Then watched Catherine stack paper and reach for big words, and the judge asked one that cut through everything. Where is the county authorization for these environmental regulations? And the shuffle, and the throat clear. And the silence said what needed saying. The fine dismissed the fence legal. The court noting the overreach for the record, and I walked out lighter by 30 pounds of worry. The real twist didn't happen in front of the bench. It happened in my backyard, when Tom and I dug up intentionally buried survey stakes, stamped with dates that matched the original subdivision file, proving the true line had been known and hidden. And when we photographed everything and filed it, neighbors scheduled their own surveys. Fences went up, where fences should have been. Years ago, refunds went out under a new board that posts every ledger line in the open, and Derek came over with a cheap 6-pack and a quiet apology that I let sit between us, because forgiveness is work, and trust is slower than a court docket. Catherine's spiral ended where spirals tend to end. Charges for vandalism and attempted arson banned from the neighborhood restitution for the money she moved around, like it wouldn't be missed. A house sold under pressure, a reputation that won't be back. And I don't celebrate that. I just sleep better. These days, I still walk my line after a storm. I still check the cameras before bed. I still take my dad's rod down to the dock on Saturdays, and I still think about the difference between authority and proof. One flakes in your hand, like a rusted screw. The other holds when wind comes up, and the fence that started as protection turned into a backbone for how our little lake actually works now. Fair access, where it belongs. Privacy, where it's earned receipts pinned to the bulletin board instead of promises yelled on a sidewalk. People ask if I went too far, if I built a wall where a bridge should be, and I ask back how you build anything straight on a lie, because lines are not rude. If they are true, they're the reason porches don't tilt and docks don't sink. And you know what I mean. So here's where I leave it with a question that will probably start a little fire in the comments, and that's fine. Where do you draw the line between community and control? Between shared good and private right? Between keeping order and flexing power because you like how it feels? Did I defend what's mine, or did I slam a gate? Did the judge get it right, or did the neighborhood lose something it can't get back? Tell me what you see. Tell me if you've been where I was standing. Drop your own HOA story, or the time you had to draw a line and hold it hit. Like if this gave you a push, subscribe for more real talk, told the way folks actually talk. And let's argue it out like neighbors on a porch, not clipboards on a dock.